Joe back with the Fox News Alert. Listen up. The FBI is arresting the person suspected of planting pipe bombs outside the RNC and DNC's headquarters in Washington back in 2021. That the night before the Capitol riots, January 6. David Spunt joins us live from D.C. with the latest. David.
Well, Brian, this is a big one. This is almost 5 years in the making. You remember this happened on January 5th, 2021, the night before the Capitol was under attack on January 6, 2021. A person who was completely covered in clothes, in a sweatshirt, a hoodie, mask, gloves, you name it, placed pipe bombs outside both the DNC, Democratic National Committee headquarters, and the RNC, Republican National Committee headquarters. We don't know the suspect's name or anything else about the person at this time. We're told that will likely change as the day moves on, but we can say this was a male that was living in the Northern Virginia area outside of Washington, D.C., and this arrest was made by the FBI and other federal authorities here within the last hour or 90 minutes or so. Just this past October, the FBI put out enhanced video of this masked suspect planting these pipe bombs on this bench outside the RNC and then the DNC. Now, this was, again, the night before the Capitol attack. Now, according to authorities, the suspect, they believe, was 5'7", using some technology where they could measure based on the video. The person wore a hooded sweatshirt, glasses, and gloves. We'll see if that rings true once we get an identity. Agents say that these bombs, Brian, were placed between 7:30 and 8:30 at night. It's important to note the bombs did not detonate, but they were viable and discovered the next day. Over the past almost 5 years, agents visited 1,200 homes, businesses, conducted more than 1,000 interviews, reviewed approximately 39,000 video files, going through 600 tips or so. And there was a reward, everyone, for $500,000 leading to this arrest. Of course, that'll be a question we're expecting to hear from authorities later today involved in this investigation to see if someone did indeed tip off authorities and may be eligible for that $500,000 reward. So a lot of questions. We want to know the name. We want to know much more about this. But this is something that's been plaguing Washington, D.C. and many across the country for almost 5 years now, guys.
Quick! Everyone, flee for your lives! Into the street! Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
We've been praying for this day. Thank you, Lord. Oh, Lordy. Here we go. It is Pipe Bomber Thursday, December 4th, 2025. A gift package wrapped neat and nice under the tree, tick, tick, ticking, is our pipe bomber finally arrested? Or are we witnessing a massive government cover-up? I don't know. I will read to you all of the available evidence right now. And we have booked, our best-in-class production team here has booked the single greatest show on the entire internet to talk about this topic that we have been covering for years now, because it's the key to everything with the January 6th Fedsurrection. The key to everything is who the hell made these pipe bombs? Why did they let this person get away? And that's the one thing we know as a matter of fact. This morning, as a Virginia man, an anarchist has been arrested for planting pipe bombs. This suspect was known to the FBI. That's right. Say the word. Say it to the whole class. You got to say it out loud. Yeah, the FBI knew the suspect. That's what we know so far. This man has been living in Virginia for 5 years after planting pipe bombs. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what we are profoundly thankful for. We are very glad that we have seen something here. Much like in the Charlie Kirk case, what we want is we want evidence laid bare before us. We want to be able to see all of it. We want it to be demonstrable. We want it to be based on DNA. We want it to be completely conclusive. I'm not here to cheer for one side or the other. I'm here to say, give us everything, and we're smart enough to come to our own conclusions. And that's all we want to cover. But when you have nothing, what's going to sprout up are some theories. I don't even use the word banned on this program and on all of our social media is the term conspiracy theory, because there's no such thing. There's just theory. You're not a conspiracy theorist. No matter what you believe, there's unproven theories, and then there's proven theories. Then there's just fact. Then that becomes fact. And we get to know these things. Like, for instance, there is a matter of fact that the CIA killed Kennedy. Now it's just a matter of fact that they had a hand in it, for sure. The CIA has been lying to us for 70 years, and all the document dump proves it, and we'd only seen half the documents. But the CIA proved to us that they killed Kennedy, or that they had a hand in it. I probably killed him. And now we know it. We have the physical documentation. That is no longer a conspiracy theory. That's provable fact that the CIA was bumping Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico and was working through him and with him in order to get that murder done. So that is what we need in the case of Epstein, Charlie Kirk, Thomas Crooks, the pipe bomber, and all of the above. Give us all of the evidence. Let us decide for ourselves. We are the American people. You work for us. Damn it, we're your bosses, and we're the stakeholders of this country. And ladies and gentlemen, we deserve to know the single greatest hoax pulled on the American people, a hoax called January 6th, where a very small group of patriotic Trump supporters were duped and tricked into walking into the United States Capitol, which was opened for them. How did they open these 7-ton doors? 7-ton doors? These guys were, not a single one of them were armed. They weren't able to find a single firearm. Not a single J6er was armed. Nobody had crowbars or anything. How'd they open the 7-ton doors? With the magnetic locks, with all the alarms. How'd they do that exactly? How did the Trump supporters get that done if it wasn't for an inside job? Again and again and again, we've covered this. Again and again and again, we've trod as heavily as we can on the fraudulence that was January 6th and how it was set up to put Donald Trump in prison, how it was set up to lock up the MAGA movement, and if you locked up enough of them, then you could probably just kill the MAGA movement forever. Look, we put thousands of MAGA Trump supporters in jail with their little red hats, right? Now we've killed MAGA. And now we put Trump in jail, and now MAGA is officially dead, right? And that was the goal of January 6th. We have so much evidence to prove that this was something that was pre-planned and was set up by design. And the pipe bomb is critical to that plan. So who is the pipe bomber? What were they doing? Why did they do it? We're going to answer as many of those questions as possible today on the show with the former U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stephen Sund, Julie Kelly, Sean Davis, and Congressman Wesley Hunt, ladies and gentlemen. We are really, really excited about this show, and we're excited to finally be bringing here at the end of our flu season, as we have just been through, spent all of Thanksgiving sick in bed. We are so thankful to finally have this as we are coming out of it. It feels like the fever is breaking. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. A reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that if you are looking for something delightful to put on your tree other than a pipe bomber arrest, then perhaps a Christmas ornament from our site. We'll just do a very quick read here. You know it. Remember, these are perfect gifts for your loved ones, perfect gifts for your family members. If they are liberal, this is a wonderful way to troll them. It is a way to remember the season. Every single one of these ornaments are stamped with the year and a Bible verse and a fun message on the back from us to you. They're handmade by American veterans here in the beautiful state of Florida, and not a single communist touched these ornaments on their way to be shipped directly to your home. We've shipped now over 40,000 of these ornaments. Here's a wonderful example today, our tree of the day, from Leah Bradley. From Lee Bradley, look at that, a beautiful tree. I'd love to see it. And this is from Rhonda from Texas, a Charlie Brown Christmas tree here. We love you. Thank you so much. Let's freaking get to it, ladies and gentlemen. Pipe bomber news. I know, a little abrupt going from Christmas ornaments to pipe bombers, but What else are you going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to get to today, and we have a lot of guests lined up that'll be here in moments. Okay, here we go. Virginia man arrested for January 6th pipe bombing that saw explosives planted on Capitol Hill on the eve of notorious riot. Let's read through this Daily Mail article, and then ALX, who has been locked into the story all morning, and I'm thankful for that. My wife is now really down bad with the flu, so I had all the kids this morning. Yeah, it's not pretty when I have to make all the kids breakfast, but we made it happen. We made it work, okay? We made it work. Lots of blueberries wound up in the scrambled eggs, let's just say. ALX. If we missed anything here, or if there's anything new from this article, please let me know in the chat. But I'm going to read from the top line. Let's go. FBI arrested a Virginia anarchist. Oh boy. Okay. Well, that's going to be a little problem for me, right off the top there. You know, this is exactly what they tried to say about Thomas Crooks, right? Oh, they don't have any political opinion. They have no political ideology. That's an immediate red flag for me. But we're going to approach this with an open mind. Let's read. Suspect named Brian Cole in connection with several pipe bombs laid near the U.S. Capitol. So now we have a name. Brian Cole. January 6, 2021 riots. Cole was identified as the suspect on Thursday morning. Sources told MSN Now. This used to be MSNBC. And the single stupidest rebranding in history, nonetheless. MS Now. Brian Cole has been linked to support for anarchist ideologies. The suspect was charged with laying explosives outside of the DNC and RNC headquarters, which did not detonate. Well, because they were on 60-minute timers and they were set to detonate right before the rally at the Capitol. How the hell is that even possible? Of course, it is not. Still seems really mysterious here. But nonetheless, we're going to work through it, and we're going to, again, talk to all the best experts on this issue in moments. The arrest marks the first major breakthrough in a 5-year investigation that had baffled the agency and sparked a wave of conspiracy theories. It comes after weeks, the FBI offering $500,000 reward and lead to identification of the suspect. Authorities shared previously unreleased footage of the perpetrator stalking the streets of Washington, D.C. the night before the infamous riots. However, the arrest was reportedly not the result of new breakthrough in the investigation. Here we go. Get ready. Here we go. It came after the FBI reviewed existing evidence from 2021. They had this son of a bitch for 5 years. They knew who this guy was. Read it again. This came after the FBI reviewed existing evidence it had collected in 2021 and 2022. Law enforcement sources said that the arrest may cause embarrassment for the FBI because the suspect was literally right under their nose the whole time. Could have been arrested years ago if the investigators had simply pieced together the evidence they literally had in their hands. But no, they refused. Why? Why? This is listen. As we have said 100,000 times on this show, this is the only terrorist on January 6th. Nobody else is a terrorist. Some people behaved rowdy, like a bar fight. Most people just peacefully wandered the hallways, the vast majority of them. Some people rioted, and my suspicion is that the actual rioters, and I have proof of this, were anarchists, were Antifa members, were BLM activists. You can go into the federal filings and find that BLM and anarchists were wearing MAGA, they were LARPing as MAGA that day in order to cause problems, in order to be troublemakers. Some of the heaviest fines, because some of the most violent behavior went to BLM activists and anarchists that had infiltrated, and Antifa members that had infiltrated the MAGA crowd that day in order to cause problems. We know this as a matter of fact, and federal filings and prosecutions and sentencing. There's only one terrorist. This guy. This guy, I think we can all agree, left, right, center, can be classified as a terrorist. No, you shouldn't place, these are what the items look like, bomb-looking devices, and I think there's a lot of question about whether these were actually operable bombs. But no, you shouldn't place these things outside the RNC and DNC. Everyone agrees with that. Oh boy, you really hit him. Shucks, man. Boy, you really got us. Look at how hard he hid those things. Real tough, just right there next to the giant dog-sized rat trap in D.C. because the rats are so gigantic in Washington. Oh, it's awful. Yeah, great metaphor. That's exactly right. Between a trash can and a rat trap, there goes the bomb. So wait a second, the FBI could have found this guy in 2021 and put this all to rest? Let's read. In surveillance footage from the plot, video showed the hooded suspect setting down a backpack South Capitol Street, putting on some glasses, scanning their surroundings for witnesses and walking off. The suspect then walked to the nearby DNC headquarters where a bomb was placed at 7:45 p.m. There's a lot of controversy about this timeline. We'll get into it with Julie Kelly. Surveillance then showed the suspect walking into the RNC headquarters and placing the bomb at 8:16 p.m. Last seen on video 2 minutes later, leaving investigators baffled over their true identity. The suspect wore a face mask, glasses, gray hooded sweatshirt, gloves, black and gray Nike Air Max, Speed Turf shoes with a yellow logo. The explosive devices planted outside of the two buildings in Capitol Hill neighborhood were located the next day, just hours before the Donald Trump supporters descended on the Capitol. U.S. Capitol Police agents and the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms were first called at 12:45 p.m. The perfect time. The perfect time, because that was exactly when the first breach happened. You know, the fence cutter guy, the scaffolding commander, the guy that built the gallows, all these unnamed, masked, MAGA supporters. Right, got it. Still don't know who they are. Ray Epps telling everybody to go inside the Capitol. We must go inside the Capitol. And these bombs were found precisely when they needed to be found in order to draw forces away from the U.S. Capitol building. Benny, you're insane. How do you know this? Well, because the U.S. Capitol Police Chief, who will be joining us in just a moment, Stephen Sund, has told us this. He was there that day. He was in charge that day. And he's very suspicious about the timing here. After 30 minutes, the agents and the bomb technicians were still investigating the RNC. Another call came in for an explosive found at the DNC. The bombs were rendered safe, and no one was hurt. Let's just finish off this article, please. Officials said the homemade bombs were constructed out of threaded galvanized pipes, kitchen timers, and homemade black powder. The pipe bomb plot spawned numerous conspiracy theories, and the case remained unsolved for years, including last month. Conservative social media commentators falsely claimed the FBI had a Capitol Police officer as a suspect. The claim, this is speaking about the Blaze report, the claim said that the female police officer was identified using gait analysis, and the former officer's attorney said the accusations were reckless, false, absurd, and defamatory. While the arrest could cause embarrassment for investigators who failed to identify the suspect for years, it is likely to be lauded by the Trump White House after it poured new resources into the actual case. FBI Director Dan Bongino, who just posted "God Bless America and those who serve her," spoke of his desire to solve the case, including previously speculating it may have been an inside job. The hunt for the suspect was one of the largest in FBI history. This included subpoenaing box store retailers, credit card data, final customers, obviously the phone records. The only phone records that were destroyed that day were the phone records of the pipe bomber. Got it. Agents tracked down purchasers of the battery connectors to whose phones were located near the DNC and RNC headquarters at the time the bomb were planted, but the FBI found no credible match. So how do they find this guy? What evidence have they had for years to find this individual? Tick, 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 tick. Okay, fine. Cash Patel did say, stay tuned just this weekend in an interview. Ladies and gentlemen, I guess we will stay tuned. You don't want to bomb on Christmas Eve if you are cooking, ladies and gentlemen, and this is why I use Chef IQ. And let me tell you what, we have a very high IQ guest, Stephen Sund, joining in just a moment. He's ready and locked and loaded and ready to go. Let me just tell you what, if you don't want your kitchen to, well, if you don't want to have to use a kitchen timer like on the pipe bombs, I don't plan the timing for these things. Yeah, let me just tell you what, Chef IQ is a lot better than the 60-minute kitchen timer set to detonate a day later. That's how it works. 60-second time, 60-minute timer. That's how it works. Yeah, got it. All right. No, use Chef IQ instead. These are incredible wireless thermometers that go right into the meat that you're cooking. They're very small. They hook up to your phone, and they show you the actual temperature of the meat. And this is how you know when, of course, something's done, or if you're going to totally undercook or overcook your turkey. I just used it for Thanksgiving. It's amazing, incredible product. And it's changed the way that I'm going to do Christmas dinner, because I do this giant roast beast, right, is what we call it. My kids love the Grinch. And a massive roast is really hard because it's like 10 pounds, and it's really hard to nail that. So these I'm going to put in 2 thermometers, actually, one in the middle, one on the end, and I'm going to get the perfect Christmas roast. This is what I do every single year. I don't cook that much. This is going to be my perfect Christmas roast. Chef IQ Black Friday sale is going on now. Go to chefiq.com and use the promo code Benny for 30% off. Chefiq.com, promo code Benny. Let's freaking go to a man who was cooking that day. His name's Stephen Sund. He's the U.S. Capitol Police Chief. Joins us live now. Stephen, thank you so much for being back on the program. I'm wondering your takeaway from this news that a man, we now have a name, Brian Cole, an anarchist, I'm just going to put that in quotes because it seems a little mysterious to me, set these bombs presumably just to cause trouble that day. What's your initial takeaway here?
I'm glad we finally have a suspect in custody. Here we are, almost 59 months later. I'm certainly glad that we have somebody in custody. You know, I was at the gym this morning, and next thing my phone started blowing up with this information. I was going to say I can confirm I've actually heard from Chairman Loudermilk of the January 6th committee. I've been in regular contact with him. He had reached out and confirmed it. And I certainly do appreciate all the work of the committee and keeping the pressure on both, with his investigators and the outside law enforcement. So, yeah, I'm dumbfounded. I heard you talking about this as you did the intro, talking about the timing of this device. The timing couldn't have been worse. They pulled resources away from the Hill moments. I mean, literally minutes before we had the first breach on the West Front. So the timing, I've been suspect on this the whole time. I've been pushing, trying to get closure to this. I hope this is the case. Who knows? Maybe it'll lead to some other suspects being taken into custody. But I think this is going to be a big puzzle piece to answer in this whole the whole January 6th dilemma.
How do you square that the FBI had this evidence from 2021? You obviously have a long and storied career in law enforcement, an incredible pedigree. I think that you should be made warlord of all Washington, D.C. That's just my opinion. I've already made the yard sign, Stephen. Happy to send you one. But nonetheless, you know what a good investigation looks like and what a bad investigation looks like. Do you believe the story that the FBI had all of this evidence for going on now 5 years and they just refused to look at it?
I'd hate to think that's not the case. I've got a long history of working with the Bureau. WFO was literally right down the block from MPD headquarters. Mm-hmm. So we've always had a very good relationship with them. And I'd like to think that's not the case. The men and women of the FBI, I'm hoping they've been diligently working on this. I'd gotten word that they had maybe had some more information over the last couple of days coming in. So I was really hoping that we were getting ready to get somewhere. So I'd like to think that they've kept up the investigation. It's just a long time. And again, whether it's a homicide, whether it's the pipe bombs, sometimes cases run cold. and it just takes time. So maybe that's the case. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this one, but hopefully we've reached this conclusion. Hopefully it's in time. I don't know. I know we're bumping up against some of these statute of limitations, but I think we're well within it on this one, and see where we go. But I'm hoping this leads to other suspects as well.
Right. So, I mean, again, it's always been bewildering to me. Like, how do you make pipe bombs without leaving any DNA evidence at all? This individual did seem to be extremely prepared. It was very hard to ID them. It was impossible to get all their cell phone data, even though this guy was ubiquitous on their cell phone, constantly in the videos using his phone. We couldn't get any of that data. The whole thing seems extremely mysterious to me, but I just, it's my job to be a skeptic, right? Like, skepticism can't be wrong. And eventually, I guess this individual will get their day in court, right? And so we'll be able to see all of the available evidence. What further evidence would you like to see in order to bring closure here? Because I got to tell you, Chief, I just want closure, frankly. Like, I want the end of the story.
There's two things. I want closure, I want accountability, and I'd sure as hell like an apology from Speaker Pelosi. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. Okay. So let me take you back to what you had talked about with the investigation of the DNA. Let's go back to 2018. I think it was Caesar Sayoc that sent all the pipe bombs through the mail to a number of members of Congress, Maxine Waters, a couple of other people. It was Capitol Police that actually collected that one unexploded pipe bomb that got Caesar Sayoc's fingerprint. So we actually were the ones that actually helped the FBI solve that case. So yeah, the DNA, you would think there'd be DNA, fingerprint, there'd be some type of association. Oftentimes they'll take the devices apart, and this one, it was rendered safe with a water cannon, so is in pieces, and go back and try and find out where these pieces may have been purchased from. And you'd like to think that'd go to a closure. It worked in many other cases where we've been able to close these devices. And like you said, the person's on a cell phone. You can tell exactly the time they're on a cell phone and where they walk through. So they walk through a couple different areas, and you could have tracked that cell phone data. So that really always find that was surprising when the cell phone data didn't look like it appeared that it was corrupted. So for me, what I want to see right now is, what's link analysis. Who's this guy connected to, man or woman? I believe I'm being told it's a man. Who is this person connected to? Who was funding this? That's a big thing. Follow the money. You're going to get answers. Were they tied to anyone else associated with January 6th, associated in politics, anything like that? These are the things I'd like to know. And again, that should happen very quickly. Once you have the individual, once you have access to some of their electronic devices, and I'm sure FBI's already hitting the home, as the warrants are all in place to download phones, computers, things like that. And let's do some link analysis. Let's see who this person's connected with and see who is funding this.
Would you accept a Nancy Pelosi apology today? And what's the likelihood of that happening? Let me set you up here by showing your call log with Nancy Pelosi, who refused to send you any support or declare an emergency or declare that the National Guard was needed in order to help you when your officers were being overrun, in part because they'd been depleted by the pipe bombs.
You're absolutely right. And Congressional Report has said that if Pelosi's team, which is really led by her Speaker of the House, by her Sergeant Arms, who was Paul Irving at the time, that repeatedly denied my request, had approved my request on January 3rd, chances are the Capitol would have never been breached. We wouldn't be here talking right now. January 6th wouldn't be an issue. So do I think the chances of getting a call? I think I got a better chance of winning the lottery. I really don't expect that. I'm not sitting waiting by my phone for it. It would be nice. It'd be nice if they'd reconsider what I lost as a result of this. But I try to prevent it in advance. I try to prevent it during January 6th when I'm denied 71 for 71 minutes, almost a dozen times. That's just I cannot fathom. Why the hell would they keep denying my urgent requests for support? And they knew how bad it was on the West Front. So it'd just be nice to get some type of closure to that. But again, I'm just one of many people that have suffered because of this. There's whistleblowers out there, whistleblowers within the Capitol Police who were threatened with termination, that had to resign, that were suspended. There's officials on Capitol Police that were suspended when they tried to bring forward information. So there's still a lot of people that need to be have their backgrounds corrected.
What would bring total closure to this pipe bomber question for you? So many wise people have said this is really the key to everything on January 6th, and the identity here, the funding mechanisms here, the exposure of this whatever it was, will really sort of set in stone sort of the larger archipelago of what was going on that day, from the scaffolding commander to Ray Epps, to the guy who built the gallows, to the guy who was, brought snippers to cut, the fencing, to Nancy Pelosi's non-response. It all seems so mysterious. What will, like a confession? What is it that will let you say, okay, this is what actually happened that day?
I guess looking at what's the connectivity, I find it very hard to believe, and let's see what happens with this individual, that the device is placed. And again, I absolutely believe that those devices were constructed and had the minimal amount of black powder, but enough so a dog would trigger on it. It was specifically done to be a diversionary device. I've said that from day one. And I do think that for me, it's what's the connectivity to anybody else? If there is connectivity to anybody else, either in politics, anything along those lines, how is this investigation going to go? This could just be the beginning of a very complex investigation, or it could be, one guy like you said, an anarchist that was trying to disrupt, cause mayhem, maybe. But I think, running down all those leads, if they lead to something, great. If they don't, then make sure that they're run down completely. I think that's what the American people are looking for. That is this person tied to something else? Is there a bigger conspiracy associated with this? This individual in the placing of the devices. Everybody's been saying that for a long time. I'm very suspect in the timing, the location, the way it played out, for there not to be more ties out there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, gotta tell you, Chief, we have hours of video of people just walking by these bombs and no one discovering them. We have so many mysterious circumstances around them. I'm not rooting for one side or the other. I just want a empirical and demonstrable story that is jam-packed with evidence that cannot be refuted. And then a confession, obviously. This individual will get their day in court and will be able to speak through their attorney or speak to the cameras if they want to. I don't know exactly how they're going to hold them. I guess they're going to charge them with, I don't know what you charge them with, right? It's got to be, statute of limitations won't matter because it's like going to be terrorism charges, right?
Right. It'll be some type of terrorist device that they'll charge them with. And I agree. I have no doubt the FBI has got a very, very strong case on this one. Like I said, it sounded like something in the last couple of days was getting ready to break loose. So I suspect they have a very strong case. I'm just waiting to hear more information. Like I said, I think the committee is going to get more information over throughout the afternoon. So I look forward to hearing more.
All right. That's all we've ever wanted, frankly, in the conclusion of all this. Would you mind, in closing here, Chief, telling us what loose ends still need to be tied up for you on January 6th? What more would you like to learn about that day, given the fact that you are one of the chief individuals who truly suffered in total and complete righteous indignation from the results of that day? There's so many people who weren't punished for lapses and total and complete dereliction of duty. You're not one of them, but you were targeted by Nancy Pelosi in the aftermath here. So.
Yeah, I think, again, I'm appreciative of the work of the January 6th committee and their letter in December 2024 exonerating me. That's a step in the right direction. I appreciate that. But there's still a lot of people that, need their lives corrected, both internal to the department, things like that. But for me, I think, just tracking down, like you said, let's get the answers. I want to know, why were the speakers' cell phone, text messages, things like that off limit to the January 6th Select Committee? What communications were taking place with members of Congress, from either the intelligence community or the Department of Defense in advance of January 6th? I was getting a lot of odd questions from some members of Congress that gave me the impression that someone had been talking to them about something and they knew a lot more than I knew. I would like to know that. That'd be something that, that'd give me a little bit of closure about this. But again, I'm looking to find out who this individual is. It's interesting. You've got a name already. who the individual is and what ties they may have to anybody that I just mentioned, whether political, DOD, intelligence community, things like that. And it may be nothing. It may be something, maybe nothing. But like you said, I just want a nice, clean investigation to where the American public is assured all ends have been tracked down and tied up.
Yeah, would you mind elaborating? So when you were grilled before the January 6th committee, you got the impression that there were members that were trying to get to a specific result.
Oh, the January 6th Select Committee?
Yeah.
100%. Well, first of all, they didn't want me to testify in public. That was the first thing. They did a number of those public hearings, and at no time did they want me to testify in public. They wanted just a behind the closed doors testimony. And when it came down to my repeated requests, it got very contentious. I mean, literally, voices were raised. It was, oh, you weren't denied. What do you mean I wasn't denied? Here's my phone records. Here's what I'm being told. But because they were saying, well, it wasn't an emphatic no. It was, let me run it up the chain. I should know any minute. So that's not a no. It was absolutely freaking ridiculous that they were taking that position. And repeatedly I had to say, well, if somebody came to you, like your kid came to you and said, hey, Dad, I want to borrow the car. And you said, well, let me talk to your mother first. That's not giving him a yes. And you're telling him no. I mean, let me talk to your mother. Let me get an answer for you. I mean, it just got so crazy, but it did. It went on for, it was probably about a 6-hour interview. There was a couple of breaks, but it got very contentious. Anytime it looked like there was any dirty hands for members of Congress or leadership. And it was clear they did not want any part of that. It was clear they wanted to focus all attention down on 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and not on the Hill.
Do you plan? Are you going to be testifying in public with the new January 6th Select Committee?
They know how to get in touch with me. I've never demanded. I've never required a subpoena. Anytime they've asked me to testify, I've been there to testify. Whether it was a select committee, the only committee that I had to work to testify before was the very first committee, the Joint Senate Committee with the Homeland Security Committee and Rules. They didn't want me to testify, and I actually had to call somebody on Rules and get them to push for me to testify. And I was the only one that showed up and testified for 4.5 hours. So if they call me, I'm happy to testify. They know my story. They know what went on. My story hasn't changed in 59 months, and it's not going to change in the next 59 months.
All right. The Chief Steven Sund. You can follow him here. He has almost 100,000 subscribers on X. I have a feeling he's going to get quite a bump here as he becomes the truth teller that brings some of these loose ends to a close. Godspeed, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Patriot Mobile keeps us locked in. I have no idea what kind of phone the pipe bomber was using. Are we going to do pipe bomber integrations into every read today? Every partnership? Probably going to get yelled at for those. But what I'm telling you here is that the corrupted records from the pipe bomber's phone, well, ladies and gentlemen, wouldn't be corrupted with Patriot Mobile because they're sound as a pound. They are the backbone of our show, and we are out and on the road. We'll be traveling tomorrow back up to Washington, D.C. Got a rowdy day and an exciting day tomorrow in D.C. Patriot Mobile will be with us, and we're going to bring you along with us. And whenever we are out and about, it's Patriot Mobile and their incredible service. They give you the same or better premium coverage as the main carriers, and they offer unlimited data plans, mobile hotspots, international roaming, and more. We use all of it. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny. You call 972-PATRIOT. Use a promo code Benny for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. Switching over to the CEO and co-founder of The Federalist, Sean Davis, joining us live right now. Sean, I got something special to show you, given the fact that we're going to talk about the pipe bomber today. And it's my favorite piece of evidence from January 6th. It's Nancy Pelosi. When there were still when people were still just kind of rioting and yelling out in front of the Capitol, saying, "I've been waiting for this," trespassing on Capitol grounds. Here we go.
Secret Service said they have dissuaded him from coming to Capitol Hill. They told him they don't have the resources to protect him here. So at the moment he is not coming, but that could Change.
Oh, he comes, I'm gonna punch him out. This is
Oh,
my
wow,
moment.
I would pay to see
I've
that.
been waiting for this, for trespassing on the Capitol grounds.
That's what they charged every J6er with, by the way, trespassing on Capitol grounds. So who the hell says something like that? I think like maybe we just like get this out of the way. What Speaker of the House would ever say trespassing on Capitol grounds? I've been waiting for this. What is that, Sean?
Well, I'm impressed that she took time from her busy day trading schedule back in 2021 to do that nonsense. Because, every minute she takes away from day trading, she's losing like millions of dollars.
That's
the lady's
right.
a freaking wizard.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, who's going to pay for all those vineyards she's got in Napa Valley? I got to tell you, she's got a very hideous taste in art. I've actually gone to the front of her vineyard in Napa Valley, and it was very nice, but it's very expensive. Postmodernist art, littered all over the place. And, you got to pay the bills. I don't understand this story. I don't understand the breaking nature of it, why the FBI was sitting on this evidence for so long. Sean, you're a lot smarter than me. Help me out here. So the FBI, the story goes, an anarchist named Brian Cole allegedly placed these bombs just to cause trouble, and that the FBI's had all of the evidence to lock him up since 2021. The floor is yours.
Oh yeah, so I'm questioning your claim that you don't know why the Biden admin never did anything on this for 4 years. I think we both know why they never did anything. So the whole pipe bomb thing was actually really, really important to the whole narrative at the time. When it was placed, when it was allegedly supposed to go off, which was right around when Trump would have been showing up to give his speech at the Capitol. It was the only real act of potential terroristic violence we saw. Yes, there was some violence with rioting and some scuffles with police, which unfortunately you see in a lot of protests and riots. But the only like terroristic type of threat and violence we saw was that pipe bomb. So it was really, really important to the whole claim that a bunch of insurrectionists and civil warriors were trying to take over the Capitol and bomb the seat of power and all this kind of stuff.
Yes.
Now, we all know it was just a bunch of like normal people staying between the velvet ropes inside a public building during business hours, and they got there by a door that was held open for them by police. But yeah, the pipe bomb was really, really important to the left in its J6 narrative. So I am not surprised at all that the Biden FBI, the same one that was doing hoax after hoax against the Trump campaign, against the American people, against Trump himself, I'm not shocked at all that they just sat on this and did nothing with it. But that said, I am so excited to learn more. I'm desperate to learn more. We've only had the story for a couple hours. I cannot wait to learn all the facts that have been hidden from us for 4 years.
I'm couching this in suspicion, knowing that I'm being sort of a catty bee, because I want as much exposure on this as possible. Like when you come forward with this evidence, much like with the Charlie Kirk murder, or what we haven't seen with Thomas Crooks, right, or what we haven't seen with Epstein, you have to hit the American people with demonstrable evidence that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt what happened that day. And as we've covered before, Sean, the whole it's cool, trust us, bro, that doesn't work anymore. It can't work. It won't ever work for the rest of our lives. The faith in these institutions have been atomized. And so what is it in this case that would make you say, yep, I that is the official narrative and I believe it, and we're going to put the weight of the Federalist behind it?
Yeah, so like I said, I want to learn so many more facts. There's been lots of information out there about who the pipe bomber is or might be or might not be. So I'm approaching this whole thing with kind of cautious skepticism. I'm not just assuming that it's all bogus. Could be. I mean, I've been alive for the last 10 years, so I've definitely seen bogus nonsense from the FBI. But I just want to see the facts. I want to see the case. I want to see all the video. I want to see the exact movements. I want to see where the guy emerged on Capitol Hill. Was it from a Metro? Was it from a car? What are the plates on the car? I want to see where he ended up. I want to know all his bank account information, his associates, his entire background as a person. And I just want a picture of everything that led up to that day, and then everything that happened after. Emails, texts, chats, you name it, internet history, search history. These are all things I want to know. I imagine everyone else wants to know them as well. And given that he, I think, has been arrested that kind of presumes that we'll have a criminal case against him, and then we'll get to see all that. But as with everything in this type of case, I want all the information and I want it now, and then I can evaluate it and we can all go from there.
What are some of the loose ends that you think still remain? And even though Brian Coles, is an anarchist, and it seems like this is going to be like the, button-up story that he was just trying to cause trouble, there seems to be so many suspicious activities that occurred between then and now, including but not limited to, did he actually place the bombs in the timeline that they said that they were placed? The discovery of the bombs, Kamala Harris's peculiar appearance at the DNC, the lack of the DNC or the Democrat Party ever using that story for their official narratives. When the bombs were discovered, the Secret Service agents finished their Wawa hoagies inside of their car and didn't even act. They still let kids and people walking their dogs walk by. There's so much that seems so bloody convenient about this story. Do you still think this guy could have been working with the feds?
Oh, and, he could have been working with the feds, loosely defined, however you want to define Fed. Was it the FBI? Was it CIA? Was it some USAID thing? Maybe, yeah, he was knowingly working with them. Maybe he was being provoked or instigated by them. Maybe it was a network that was loosely connected to the feds and not the feds themselves. And they were trying to, go around poking freaks with a stick saying, come on, do crimes. I genuinely don't know. I really have similar questions about this as the ones about the Trump assassination attempt in Butler. Was that guy just a random lone wolf who decided to crawl up on a building one day? I really don't think so. I just don't. I think he was probably being instigated or groomed. I think it was probably in that instance, the government has two hands and they didn't know what each one was doing. One was trying to make Trump vulnerable by denying security. The other was trying to spin up and weaponize these freaks who kind of crawl into themselves online and decide that violence is their only way to matter. I kind of assume that's what happened with the pipe bomber, but I don't know. So when you have an assumption like that, what you do is you kind of go, rather than saying this is what happened and then you go backwards to try and prove it, you have a hypothesis and then you go through and you get all the evidence you can. And you say, well, is this piece of evidence consistent with this hypothesis? Is this piece of evidence consistent? Or would these suggest that my hypothesis is false and I need to kind of come up with a new one that unifies all the different pieces of evidence we have together? So I have assumptions and I definitely have biases. What I don't have a lot of yet are actually facts that I can then kind of match up to those biases and hypotheses and use them to discredit or credit them.
What are, from a publisher's standpoint and a reporter's standpoint, what are some of the final holes that need to be plugged? What are some of the final ends that need to be tied up, loose ends that need to be tied up for January 6th, for you to say that you have sort of a greater overarching picture of what happened that day? Obviously, the contention of this program and many people who've appeared on this program, including but not limited to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, is that there was a greater overarching conspiracy against our president in order to frame him and his supporters and throw away the keys. Obviously, the end goal was Jack Smith and getting Donald Trump in prison. Democrats to this day will rage and scream at the sun over Merrick Garland because he didn't put Trump in prison fast enough. They're very open about that. So was Joe Biden. The goal of January 6th was to put Trump in jail for the rest of his life on federal charges, and they were this close, right, in order to getting that done. They missed by a whisker. What are some of the greater loose ends? Obviously, the pipe bomber now, slowly, we're getting that tied up. What else needs to be explained?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot. And I think I tend to that same belief. The big question was this something that was kind of hatched ahead of time and kind of wished into existence so that they could get a particular outcome that they wanted? Or was it something they capitalized on in the moment so that they could use it as a pretext for stuff they always wanted to do? To me, those are kind of like the two frames to look at. I don't believe their narrative that, they were planning to take over and it was a civil war and an insurrection. That's stupid. I've been to conservative protests. I remember the Tea Party where everyone would show up and then pick up all their trash, and the parks would look better when they left than when they arrived. I saw the people, orderly filing into the Capitol and staying between the velvet ropes. I know how conservatives act in these situations. They're not rioters. So obviously you can have some people there who they get caught up in the emotion and the frenzy of a crowd. They can do things they wouldn't otherwise do. I can totally believe that. But I'd like to know, who put the gallows up on the Capitol grounds. We don't know that to this day. Who were all the people wearing tack gear, black masks, who were kind of the vanguard of breaking into the Capitol? We don't really know much about that. Why was the DC leadership and the congressional leadership so intent on denying National Guard deployment to the Hill, even though everyone knew it was going to be a massive protest? Who was the pipe bomber? What was he actually doing? Who was he doing it on behalf of? Why was it that Pelosi's daughter just happened to be there filming all this and setting all this stuff up? These are all the questions I have. And my perspective on it is colored so much by what we learned during the Russia collusion hoax and how the media and people on the inside and a corrupt FBI worked together to create a pretext to do things they already wanted. Because with J6, it wasn't just about putting Trump in prison. It wasn't just about taking control of Congress or the presidency. They also used it as a pretext to lock up normal people, to demonize half the country as insurrectionists. They used it as a massive pretext to censor everyone they wanted. Everyone in conservative media knew that after that happened, that their Google reach, their Facebook reach, their Twitter reach was instantly nuked. I mean, yes. we can go back and look at our data from that time, and everyone was riding high, and then bam, you were pushed off a cliff. So it was in the wake of COVID, it was their kind of final nail in the coffin of taking care of the movement that they never wanted to arise in the first place. And so they used it to do everything they wanted. It was their clearinghouse of shenanigans.
I will never forget this. ALX is probably the only guy on staff, ALX and Danny, both my producers, who've been with me for close to a decade. They'll remember this. I think they're the only ones who were around to remember this. Guys, remember when something totally having nothing to do, frankly, with January 6th at all, we used an emoji that was like a bomb or a stick of dynamite emoji. We use emojis around here, right? We publish on social media. You use emojis, and we got our account blacklisted, and it's big warning accounts just for using that emoji.
Wow, I never knew that.
You used the wrong emoji, which is of course publicly available on a universal platform. That's how severe and how strict the clampdown became, in the wake of this. So we used the wrong emoji and we got flagged for deletion for using an emoji. That really happened on Instagram and on Facebook. So Sean is completely correct. Sean, quickly here, your take on Tennessee 7. This was a 9-point victory for Matt Van Epps yesterday. We sort of were longing for a take that is not like either the sky is falling and everything's on fire and MAGA's dead, or like the sunny side of the street whistling past the graveyard. But what is the clear-eyed perspective of this? Obviously, you live in Tennessee. You love that state. We've hung out in that state before. Nashville, I really like Nashville, frankly. But this result is wild. Let's just pop it up on screen real fast. What does this say about the left? Where you can tell the constituents of Nashville, I hate you. I hate your music. I hate your bridesmaids parties, which is the entire economy of Nashville. And I loathe everything I hate everything that you choose to be, in the words of Michael Scott. And then 80% of the city votes for you. What is that, Sean?
Yeah, so it's an interesting case, because I think just about everyone is getting the implications wrong. So the word I would use to describe people on the right's feelings after this race is relief, not jubilation, not despondency, but relief. This was a race that really was a lot closer than it looked 2 weeks out. It's why you saw the big push with her, all the clips of her coming out showing her to just be a raging left-wing nut job. She hates Christians. She hates Nashville. She hates Tennessee. She hates Christian music. She hates tourists. You saw a big national push for about 2 weeks. The entire party got engaged. Trump got involved. They had a massive get out the vote rally on Monday with every statewide elected official in Tennessee. And so he ended up winning by 9. You know, I was told earlier that day they were expecting about a 4 to 6 point victory. So it was good. People were relieved. But don't believe a lot of the spin that you see from people citing the Cook Partisan Voter Index saying, oh, it's a plus 10 our district. He won by 9. Things are great. It is not a plus 10 district. It is a plus 20 to 22 district. Trump won it by 22. Mark Green won it by 22. Mark Green won it by 22 or 23 back in 22 when Trump wasn't even on the ballot. It is a plus 20 district. So only getting a victory of 9 there. Yes, I understand it's an open seat. That to me is a warning sign. It's not a sign of doom or the apocalypse, but it's a warning sign that Republicans really need to get things in order. They need to get the activism and the get out the vote machinery working, and they need to give people a reason to positively vote for Republicans. They need to be clear about what the congressional Republican agenda is beyond we just have to beat crazy left-wing loonies like Afton Bain. You actually need a positive vision about what you're going to do and what you have already accomplished with your power. And I think that's where the party has really lacked and has a lot of room for improvement going forward.
Yes. So that improvement, according to Rich Barris, was salvaged, saved, and enthusiasm shot up as Trump is finally talking about banning all third world criminal migrants and legal migrants, finally getting really serious about the immigration that is tearing this country to pieces and making America completely unrecognizable and is, of course, indefensible. How important is that going to be heading into the midterm elections for the MAGA base?
I think it's extremely important. It's something that everyone cares about. We all kind of feel the sense of a country that's careening out of control, of cities and states we don't recognize, of new trends that seemed once unthinkable in America. So it's something people are very concerned about. But I think you can't just look at immigration in a vacuum and say, well, people just want fewer immigrants, because I think the immigration debate is actually a proxy for a much bigger debate, which is, why is it so much harder for me to make a comfortable living in my own country? Why is everything so expensive? Why is everything so hard? Why is everything worse? Why are our products so much cheaper? Immigration falls into that bucket. So I think if you attack immigration just as we got to get rid of these people, I don't think that works. It needs to be presented as part of a much larger plan to restore America to what it was, which was a place where you could raise a family comfortably on one income without having both parents working their fingers to the bone and still not being able to make a life for themselves and their children that they wanted.
Yes. JD hit on this yesterday at the White House in the cabinet meeting, where he said, home prices, of course, critical to getting a family started, getting a marriage started, getting your life started, seizing the American dream. It is an iconoclast Norman Rockwell visage of what America is, and you cannot get your life started without it. And if you want to have more American babies and more American families and happy families and not spiraling renter nihilism, you need open American single-family homes to do that in. Those are being occupied by tens of millions of criminal aliens, and you have to get them out. And that is the policy of this administration. So tying that, sort of linking that inexorably to a real-time pain point, especially for young people, the inability to ever buy or afford or own a home, I think that was critical. That's great. I think that's like the takeaway, right, is the takeaway from that is perfect. It's exactly what you're talking about. You have to link immigration to a real life pain point and then ameliorate that.
Yeah, JD's exactly right. And I think he's probably one of the best in the country on this. That there is a crisis of confidence in what America is. And it used to be a place where you could do well in school. You didn't even need to go to college. You could get a great job. Your company would take care of you. You could live in the same place near your family. You could grow up and live and die in the same house that you had been in for 60 or 70 years. Your kids were going to be around you. They were going to be taken care of. That is what people want back. They want the safe neighborhood. They want the home they own. They want the white picket fence. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's amazing. When you have a country where people don't own anything, where they're $200,000 in debt for a worthless college degree that everyone older than them told them they had to do, when they'll never be able to afford a down payment on a home, let alone the crazy mortgage on it because homes have been so inflated. why on earth would someone have any confidence or feel like they have a stake in that country going forward? And when they don't feel that way, you get this malaise and this sense of ennui where people are like, it doesn't matter what I do. I'm just going to order DoorDash and be alone and not get married, not have a family, not own anything. That is not America. That is a vision of America that we should hate as conservatives and that we should want to get rid of, because conservatives are the party of tradition and prosperity and common sense and giving people control over their own lives as opposed to making them permanent renters or debt slaves.
Yes. Here's the clip. Ladies and J.D. Vance going off on mass immigration. This is exactly what you were talking about. Why did homes get so unaffordable? We had 20 million illegal aliens taking homes ought to, by right, go to American citizens. This is exactly the time. J.D. Vance knows what time it is. This is how you make that argument. You're exactly right. Saying immigrant bad is not enough. You have to say bad because you want lower gas prices, you want lower grocery prices, you want lower home prices, and there's a parasitic criminal underclass that is keeping that from you. It's just like, and sucking your public services dry. And this is exactly the message. Okay, that wins. Thank you, Sean. Everybody follow Sean Davis. He is the CEO, co-founder of the Federalist. Federalist is awesome. Here's their homepage right now. Democrats would like to suppress free speech the way that Britain does. You're exactly right. We talked with Piers Morgan about that yesterday. Thank you, Sean. Godspeed. Follow Sean. He has 700,000. We're just going to round up 700,000 subscribers, and you should be one of them.
You're awesome. Thank you, Benny.
God bless you, homie. Ladies and gentlemen, Wesley Hunt, locked and loaded and ready to go, just like me this morning as I'm scooting out the door, catching up. Again, the missus is down bad, as everybody has been with the flu in my household. And so I was cooking breakfast for the kids this morning. As I've said, plenty of blueberries wound up in the scrambled eggs. It is a bit of a mess when Dad's cooking breakfast. But I kicked them a 120 Life. They love these. They don't get much juice. And it ain't juice. It's a blend of 5 all-natural ingredients to lower naturally your blood pressure. Helps also with diabetes. So it's not, I mean, I guess you could call it a juice, but has 1 gram of sugar in it. And my kids love it. It's an easy way to make sure that they are getting their vitamins, but also getting nutrients first thing in the morning. 120 Life is a spectacular drink, and you can get it right now to help with high blood pressure. I have high blood pressure, and around the holidays, y'all know what's going to happen, right? Tick, 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 up, 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 up. You don't want to be on a bunch of pills. Right now, 20% off your entire order at 120 Life. Use the code Benny. 120life.com. Use the code Benny at checkout. Christmas and New Year's, the holiday season, very stressful. 1 in 2 Americans, 50% of Americans, suffer from high blood pressure. Make sure that you are treating it all naturally. Again, code Benny at 120life.com. Ladies and gentlemen, let's rock and roll with our friend, deep in the heart of Texas, Wesley Hunt. Welcome back, West Point Wesley.
You know it.
Yeah, awesome,
you know, the Army Navy game is coming up, brother. So I gotta rep my alma mater this week. You know, this is a big week for us. Go Army, beat Navy. Let's get this thing cracking, man.
You gonna be there with Trump?
No, he's not going this year.
He's not.
I got to go with him last year, and it was quite the experience.
All right, man. Listen, we got a lot of things happening in the state of Texas. We got a lot to cover here, but we dug up an old clip of a man who you are running against right now for a Senate seat. I can see obviously the Hunt for Senate logo behind you there. Yeah. This is John Cornyn talking about how January 6th was just like 9/11. It's a crazy clip where he says, this is our 9/11. Here we go.
Director Ray, after the events of 9/11, I think it was Admiral Bobby Inman who coined the phrase failure of imagination. We just couldn't conceive of the idea that something like what happened on 9/11 would occur, but that was a failure to imagine it. And it strikes me that the events of January the 6th share something in common with 9/11 in the sense that it seemed like there was a failure of imagination. That's not to point the finger at anybody to blame, but merely to try to describe what I think may have occurred.
So then he goes on to beg Christopher Wray, disgraced Christopher Wray of the FBI, for harsher charges for his own constituents, many of them Texans, who went to Washington, D.C. simply to support the president. So given everything that we're learning about the pipe bomber this morning, what we now know about January 6th, your take, Congressman, on this?
Well, this just goes to show you just how out of touch a man that's been in the halls of the Senate for 24 years. This just goes to show you what their thought process really is, because he really has no idea the impact that 9/11 had, not just on this country, but even on people like me. This is clearly the words of a man that hasn't served this country and has not fought in combat because of 9/11. Keep in mind, when 9/11 happened, I was a sophomore at West Point. And when that day happened, I will never forget where I was. I was sitting in my barracks, in Eisenhower Barracks at West Point, 60 miles north of where 9/11 happened. And I remember thinking to myself, guess what? We are not entering an army at peace. We are all going to war. 3,000 Americans were vanished from this earth in that very moment. The greatest terrorist attack that happened on our soil. And so to talk about January 6th in the same way and to even mention 9/11 is blasphemous. But again, this is the problem when you have people that have been in Washington for 20, 40, 30, or in Joe Biden's case, even 137 years. It is time for us to continue to clean house and have people that have lived this life in the past few decades that understand exactly what's going on. Now, we all know that January 6th was an entrapment scheme. And I will tell you that even though it takes more time for us to get this thing going, it's taking more time for us to find out and get to the bottom of January 6th. The fact that we are actually finding out more about this pipe bomber, the fact that justice is finally coming to a head, it's really important to know that if President Trump had not won, we would never have this information today. And while it's happening slow, please keep in mind the wheels of justice do churn slowly. And we are finally getting to the bottom of this entrapment scheme that people knew that was a farce from the very beginning. And keep in mind, we always talk about January 6th, and I always tell people, look, one person was killed that day. It was Ashley Babbitt. It was an unarmed white woman that was killed by a black Capitol Police officer. Keep in mind, what would have happened if this were the other way around? There would have been pure and utter chaos around this country. And I always tell people this. Let's get to the bottom of this. Why were these people actually let into the Capitol? What happened to our security measures? What was the FBI's involvement? Who is this pipe bomber? Let's start asking these questions. And I'm also very proud of the American people that they weren't disenfranchised by this ruse and disenfranchised by what happened, and still elected President Trump to come back to office to rectify the disaster that was the Biden administration. So again, back to John Cornyn and making these very insensitive comments. You cannot compare 9/11 to January 6th. You cannot compare the deaths of 3,000 people to January 6th. You cannot compare a war that cost me my West Point classmates, that cost us thousands of lives and thousands of soldiers. You cannot compare them to January 6th. You cannot compare 9/11 that sent me to war, that allowed me to fly honorably 55 combat air missions in Baghdad, that I was getting shot at by terrorists. I'm the one that had to engage the enemy. And to say that it was anything close to January 6th is completely and utterly ridiculous. I am glad justice is coming to the forefront, and I'm glad we are doing everything in our power to ensure that we get to the bottom of January 6th. I understand the frustration. It's taken more time than we like, but imagine if Kamala Harris had won, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
We wouldn't be having this conversation. I have a feeling we'd have a much less safe country because Kamala Harris was part of the regime that allowed hundreds of thousands of Afghans, after we collapsed that nation and handed it back to the terrorists that you were fighting, we allowed some of the terrorist element to just come on over to America. And some of the results have been terrible. Obviously, there are dead National Guards members. There are Afghan nationals wanting to bomb your state, we were leaked a video of the actual live stream from Muhammad. He's a taxi driver in the Fort Worth area, saying that he's going to use his taxi as a massive bomb, and he's going to Oklahoma City style bomb Dallas and Fort Worth. This is the thanks that Texas gets for taking in and spending untold millions on resettling Muhammad into Texas. What the hell is wrong with us, Congressman? What do we do to fix this problem? This seems suicidal, frankly, as a culture that we do this.
Especially here in Texas. And Senator Cornyn is actually the one that co-authored some of the legislation that allow these Afghan refugees to return back to this country without being properly vetted. I want to point that out. He did that during the Biden administration. Also, I'm somebody that has lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 years. I'm somebody that deployed to Iraq. I have actually lived in countries that have Sharia law. Sharia law has absolutely no place in this great nation. It has absolutely no place in the great state of Texas, and I will fight tooth and nail to prevent that from happening. And for those people that think that everybody that comes to this country that thinks that they think they want to sing Kumbaya and hold our hand and they're rooting for America, I'm here to tell you that they are not. Look, I'm all about multiculturalism. I understand this is a melting pot. I get all that. But this is America. We have our own culture. We have our own constitution. We have our own set of laws. And if you aren't willing to assimilate to what American culture is, I have an idea for you. Go back to your country of origin because you don't belong here. That's the bottom line. And I'm not saying that we can't have people of different religions. I'm not saying we can't have people of different beliefs. But I will tell you that one of my good buddies is that he is Muslim. He is a fighting Texas Aggie, but this guy is as red-blooded American MAGA as possible. And he told me, Wesley, I may come from a Muslim background, but I view myself as an American first. If you're willing to adopt that attitude, well, then come on board. But if you're not willing to adopt that attitude, you are not going to infiltrate this country and infiltrate Texas and think that you are going to turn Texas law, our Constitution, this constitutional republic, into Sharia law. It will not happen. And that's why we have to have strong leaders that understand exactly what the intent of these people are so we can prevent it from happening. Keep in mind, let's go back to 9/11. Let's go back to the time when we killed Osama bin Laden. I was actually stationed in Saudi Arabia when that happened. Bin Laden was born in Riyadh while I was stationed there when we killed him. Do you know that I actually didn't go to work when I was a diplomatic liaison officer for 2 weeks after we killed bin Laden for fear of bin Laden sympathizers in Saudi Arabia and in Riyadh that could have been possibly targeting American coalition forces? Let's put that in perspective. These are our allies that we are working with every single day, and we were actually fearful of our lives. Now, imagine letting people with that mindset come to our country, and you wonder why we are waking up to having, dead National Guardsmen. You wonder why you're seeing these frivolous attacks. Because let me tell you something, the mentality of these people never ended. It never stops. The jihad never ends. We are the infidel. And so if you don't understand that this is ingrained in them culturally for generations, get over it. Because at the end of the day, we sing Kumbaya. We are the culture that believes in Christ. We are the ones that believe in forgiveness. That is not inherently the culture of Sharia law. And I'll end with this. When I watch all these liberal women that are supporting Sharia law, I crack up in my soul. I want people to know this. When I was stationed in Saudi Arabia and I was there in 2012, do you know women did not even have the right to drive a motor vehicle in Saudi Arabia? So when I watch these people support these radical extreme policies just because they have a really bad case of Trump derangement syndrome and because they inherently hate this country, they have no idea what they are supporting. And that's why it takes strong leaders to look at them, ignore them, and operate in their best interest, even though they don't know what they're talking about. It takes people that have experience, that have been in the Middle East, that have lived in countries that have Sharia law, to look at that and say, let me tell you something. We have some serious problems in this country. But guess what? On our worst day, this is still the greatest country in the world. We have to continue to persevere that and not let the enemy destroy us from within.
Yes. So the enemy destroying us from within is happening because we let the enemy in. And let me describe the enemy here. Just a couple of data points. You said that women couldn't drive in Saudi Arabia. Yet it is the feminists who would be supporting, let's say, unlimited and infinite immigration from Somalia. That happens to be a hot topic right now. In Somalia, the inbreeding coefficient shows that nearly 60% of all Somalis are the results of second cousin marriages. There are tens of thousands of child brides every year. 58% of the population is illiterate. Mass female genital mutilation at almost 100% among some tribes in Somalia, an economy based on private piracy and fraud, and of course Sharia law and bloody tribal warfare that kills tens of thousands every single year. Congressman, you're in elected office. You're pretty prominent. You seem to be a very smart guy. What explanation would there ever be for bringing a Somali from this background into a Western society? Can you? Is there any case that you've ever heard? Has anybody ever tried to explain why that is happening here to this country?
Benny, what you just mentioned is just the tip of the iceberg. And I thank you so much for using this platform to elucidate people to the mindset and the psyche and the culture in which these people are coming from. And the whole point is this: we have to have a better vetting process to ensure that we weed out people that inherently believe this in their soul, because they're going to come to this country and simply wreak havoc. And that's why I really admire what Marco Rubio has done this past week. He is shutting these programs down. And so we have to ensure that we have a new system of vetting that passes the Trump smell test and not the Biden smell test. Because the Biden smell test tells you this: I can walk across this border. We can have 20 million people enter our country illegally without being properly vetted. Imagine living in a country other than the United States where they would allow 20 million people to enter their country illegally. I talk about Saudi Arabia. When I was stationed there, I couldn't enter that country without a diplomatic passport. And so if the smell test for the Biden administration is 20 million illegal immigrants, we have no idea who they are. And then you think about all the fentanyl that has poured into this country to kill every single American 10 times. And then now we have a president that is fighting against these terrorists that have been killing Americans, that are blowing these boats up, saving 25,000 Americans estimated per ship that we are destroying. And then we see liberals jump to the defense of the cartels. This is the hilarity that we are dealing with. Again, this is the level of understanding that we have on the right that we are trying to protect from the liberals that don't know what they're talking about, because they're just trying to live their life antithetically to the way our culture wants to proceed moving forward. The only thing they want to do is be against America, not for America. And so when you see these liberals behave in this way, that's the canary in the coal mine for us to continue to stay strong and continue to move forward, brother. Because if we don't get in this fight, your beautiful family and your beautiful children and my family and my children and families all over this country could potentially be living in the land or in an area of this country that's run by Sharia law. And what I tell you is I didn't fight for this country to see that happening over my dead body. So again, common sense is not so common. And I can assure you that history will be kind to us, because we have a president and an administration and a conservative movement that is running rampant in this country to ensure that we keep our fellow citizens safe, protect our culture, and understand that the progress that we have to continue to make based on the progress that we have seen in the last 30 years is what we are continuing to fight for every single day. We cannot allow radical Islamist extremists, yeah, I said it, to destroy this country from within. Will not happen.
Yeah, but you serve with one, and that's what's crazy, because, Ilhan Omar said that, that some people did something on September 11th. If that's going to be the theme that we're talking about today, well, let's talk about how she defended ISIS members, and she wrote a judge in order to get ISIS members out of prison, and how Ilhan Omar is obviously overseeing an enormous amount of fraud, not only from the election standpoint, but from a Medicare fraudulence theft ring that goes to fund Muslim terrorism abroad. And, at what point, and of course, as the president likes to say, she married her brother to get here. As you can demonstrate, as you can see the data, I don't know why anyone ever reads this. First and second cousin marriages is normal. Child brides are normal in Somalia. That's the culture of Somalia. It is indefensible as to why you'd want to bring that culture here. It's utterly incompatible. Nobody ever even tries to explain that. But what do you think should happen to Ilhan Omar? Will there ever be any true investigation here? Do you think the DHS will open an investigation? Will Congress ever do anything?
There absolutely needs to be. There absolutely should be. And as this information continues to rise to the forefront, I think it needs to be addressed, especially with somebody who is a member of Congress that absolutely hates this country so much that she's one of 435 people elected by her communities to serve in the halls of Congress of this great nation. And when I think about how much they take this for granted, I always wonder, God, like, how can you possibly hate this country so much? That doesn't make a lick of sense to me. And so whenever we start to have these kinds of conversations, I always tell people, I kind of thank God for Ilhan Omar. I kind of thank God for the squad. I kind of thank God for Jasmine Crockett, because I want and Mom Donnie in New York. I want people to understand that this is just a taste of what can happen in this country. And so when they are talking and their mouths are moving, it really should elucidate our communities, not just in the communities in which they serve, but around this country. Is that really what we want in this country? Do we really want open borders? Do we really not want to vet people that come in this country from Somalia that has a culture that is completely antithetical to what we believe and they are completely unwilling to assimilate? Do we really want people that want to come to this country and destroy our communities? And so when I look at Ilhan Omar, I use her as an example pretty frequently. Look, people, do you want that kind of leadership? Or do you want strong leadership from a strong Texas delegation, people that are born and raised right here in Texas, that I'm running for to serve in the halls of Senate, somebody that has fought for this country, someone who will die for this country, somebody that has a family who has fought this country? My brother, sister, and I, all West Point graduates, all serve this country. That's the kind of leadership that believes in the very fabric that makes us Americans. And so if the people in her community are going to elect extremists like that, brother, I can't stop them. But what I can do is I can tell you this is a warning shot to everybody else around this country. You don't want that. What you do want is freedom fighting, American loving patriots like myself. And there are plenty out there to serve this great nation in your community, or you will have that kind of liberal, just ridiculous thought process. I call it a mental illness. We're talking about communism. We're talking about Marxism. That will be coming to a community near you if we don't continue to fight for our values.
Just very quickly, should Ilhan Omar be investigated for immigration fraud, potentially marrying her brother in order to engage in chain migration? And then what does she know about this $1 billion welfare fraud case? Would you be in favor of a full-scale criminal investigation in Ilhan Omar?
Benny, of course we should investigate that. We have investigated people for far less than that. The left has turned their guns on us, and they have been politically persecuting us for years, for way less than that, way less. So to answer your question, emphatically, yes, there needs to be a thorough investigation, and then the results of that investigation needs to be released. Absolutely.
And then closing question here, Congressman, we hear little birdies tell us that you may be getting, this race for Senate might get very spicy with Jasmine Crockett jumping into the race. She has some big announcement that she's going to make. One, can you confirm, is that going to happen? And then two, are you ready to debate Jasmine Crockett for the future of Texas?
I've heard that rumor this week. Jasmine Crockett is a grown woman, and she can make and will make her own decision in this process. I would welcome a healthy debate with Jasmine Crockett. Brother, I've been on your show a lot. You know how I feel. You know where my heart is. You know how I feel about America. I can assure you that on debate stage with Jasmine Crockett, you're going to see a very stark difference in the way two people view this country. And what I tell people all the time is people like Jasmine Crockett and I, we just don't see this country and we just don't see the world the same way. And again, I have somebody that has served this country. I have somebody that has fought in combat for this country. I'm somebody that believes in America First agenda because I believe in just that, putting America first. And the contrast that you will see on a debate stage with somebody who is constantly clamoring about being the victim and how Black folks can't have this because of systemic racism and this and that. The contrast of somebody like that and the contrast of someone like me, who is the great-great-grandson of a slave. My great-great-grandfather was born on a plantation, and I have the honor of representing a white majority district that President Trump would have won by 20 points. And I just won by 27 points because I'm literally being judged not by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. And to talk about the progress of this great nation and how I get to sit before you every single day and not be concerned about the color of my skin. I am more concerned about being a husband and a father and a veteran and a West Point graduate and an educated man and someone that has served this great nation. And yes, I always tell people I'm Black and I am very proud, but I'm an American and I am prouder. And I can assure you that the contrast with a debate like that between Wesley Hunt and Jasmine Crockett is going to be must-see TV, and I welcome it.
My producers are rapidly trying to find their favorite Jasmine Crockett clip here in order
There's
to
too
get
many.
There it is. There it is. Knew it just in time. Klein, grab it, load it. Let's frickin' go.
There's too
Here we
many.
go. I just want you to respond. In closing, Congressman, how would you respond to this argument?
Maybe because these people, they are crazy because they always talk about how Christian they is. Yeah, I don't know how many of them on that side are getting divorced because they getting caught up sleeping with their co-workers, staffers, interns, all the things. Yeah, you ain't got to believe me. Just go Google. You'll find some of it. I'm telling you, and the wives is being messy and petty. They putting it in the divorce. I'm like, ooh, that's got to be true because
My goodness, that's her. By the way, that's her stance on the national debt. So, what would be your response here? Quickly, in closing, Congressman.
My response to that would be, let's approach this from an intellectual standpoint. Let's actually talk about the debt if that's our response to this question. But again, going after people and making ad hominem attacks that are basically unfounded and unsubstantiated because you think this is the Real Housewives or something like that is not serious. And what I really want people to understand is being United States Senator from the great state of Texas requires a certain level of understanding, requires a certain level of love for this country. It talks about it requires a fighter. And I want to talk about the things that are most germane to what Texans want. We want border security. We want low regulation. We want low taxes. And quite frankly, I really don't care about, I think what she said about what they is doing, and they really are. But I really want to talk about what things are most important to Texans. And it is not the personalized and ad hominem attacks about members. It is about what makes Texas, Texas, and why I believe we and Florida are the two greatest states in this great nation. Nice. And that kind of leadership is not going to work and it's not going to fly. Don't mess with Texas.
I love to see it. And we finna get you on stage with Jasmine Crockett for debate, Congressman. That would be
glorious.
Fantastic. Glorious. Here we go. 420. There you go. You can't have more than that. 420, 69 number of followers that Wesley Hunt has on X. Go ahead and join them and join Wesley Hunt. Here's his campaign website. Great little website, great little graphic there up front. Wesley Hunt and President Trump there. Wesley Hunt and America First Fighter. Great shot outside of the Trump Force One.
That was a great day. That was a great
day. Thank you very much, Congressman.
God bless you, man. God bless you and your wonderful family, brother. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, man.
You too, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just had a roll. With Wesley, with our boy, and now we roll with our girl, Julie Kelly, who I think has been waiting for this day, and we're honored to have on somebody who's been speaking truth about the pipe bomber for a very long time, who probably knows more about this than any human being walking the earth today. Let's rock and roll with Julie Kelly live right now. Julie, welcome back to the program. So we have a name now, Jacob Cole, an anarchist. I'm sorry, Brian Cole, correction. Brian Cole, an anarchist from Virginia, found because of existing evidence inside of the FBI, no doubt phone records, that have somehow become uncorrupted magically. But this is now the identity of the alleged pipe bomber. The floor is yours. Nobody knows more about this. Does this Does this official story pass the smell test? What would be the reason or the rationale for anybody in the FBI to overlook such evidence? I can't wait to hear what's actually happening here, Julie.
Right. So, Benny, I've been on your show, I don't know how many times over the past 4 years, talking
Thousands.
about
Yeah.
all of the developments in the pipe bomb scandal, pipe bomb stunt, really, that it was, and other matters related to January 6th. So it does appear, though, that the FBI has a suspect who was arrested this morning in Virginia. His name is being reported as Brian Cole. There is some speculation and reporting from other corporate news sources that this individual is tied to Antifa. We will find out more. 1:00 is the press conference with DOJ, FBI. So we will learn more details and hopefully see the indictment. So for people who are unclear about who the suspect is, this is the individual seen with the hoodie on, with gloves, carrying the backpack. There he is, not a she, a he. There he is, allegedly this individual walking around Capitol Hill between 7:30 and 8:30 the night of January 5th, 2021, and allegedly planting those devices outside the headquarters of both the RNC and DNC, which are just blocks away from the U.S. Capitol. So this is the individual we believe that the FBI has been, we know has been investigating, but arrested early this morning in Virginia.
So that leaves a lot of unanswered questions, frankly.
Yes, it does.
For me. And one of your last appearances on this program, you were talking about the suspiciousness of the discovery of these pipe bombs, if you can even call them that, and how these devices were discovered, one, at the just perfect time in order to draw away resources from the Capitol, but then two, how mysterious the backgrounds of the people who discovered them, the reactions to Secret Service officers, so many questions left unanswered on that day. Let's start there on the actual day itself, the physical evidence that we know, Julie, and then I'd like to extrapolate to the greater FBI and why this sudden aha moment. But if we could start there on the day, what physical evidence would you need to see to get locked into this story and say, you know what, yes, this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now it suddenly makes sense. Me, the preeminent reporter who has blown so many holes in the official narrative, I now agree with this timeline. What would you need to see, loose ends would you see tightened up?
So, Benny, to your point, and I still stand by this. Now, I'm willing to be open-minded, which is not like me, but I will be in this instance. As you and I have talked about, and I think a lot of evidence points to, there are very suspicious surroundings related to the discovery of that device at 12:40, the device right near the RNC headquarters. The discovery of that device by a woman who was doing her laundry that day, decided to do it at noon and then go back at 12:40, where she said she found this device that now we have been told, and the FBI, including this FBI, has been saying for years was planted the night before. The 12:40 discovery is important because the joint session of Congress began at 1:00, just a few blocks away at the U.S. Capitol. So what happened there, and I know you had Chief Sund on, he probably talked about this, the diversion of resources, law enforcement, personnel, police, away from the Capitol to the RNC to try to figure out if this device was legit or not. Now, it's very important also to underscore, these devices were not viable. We have FBI analysis that was conducted at Quantico actually early on that said, while it looked viable, and we had FBI officials telling us for years, not this FBI, the old FBI, that it was viable. However, they were not. So this woman also, and I've got a lot of reporting on her at my Substack Declassified with Julie Kelly. She's tied to law enforcement. She was working for FirstNet, which is this private public partnership to provide broadband during crises or disasters. So she has law enforcement ties, which always was kind of suspicious to me. Fast forward then to the discovery of the DNC device, where what we've talked about, allegedly sitting there for 17 hours, missed by at least 2 bomb-sniffing canine units, missed by police officers from Capitol Police, DC Metro Police, Secret Service, because Kamala Harris arrived at the DNC headquarters at about 11:25 a.m. on January 6th, all having missed this device sitting under a bush between two benches in front of the DNC headquarters, right next to the garage where all these police vehicles and Kamala Harris had been driving there. So I'm waiting to see what the details are of this suspect's involvement. If there are ties to him and perhaps others who either found the device at the RNC or the Capitol police officer who found it about 1:05 p.m. on January 6th. Still, there will still be a lot of questions, I think, even after the press conference and the charging documents are released. However, this goes a long way, as you know, in debunking other stories and theories as to who that person was on video January 5th, 2021.
Does it even stand? I mean, because, so you can say that this individual perhaps, and this is the first time I'm hearing of this, and we've been live for the last 2 hours. So is there Antifa ties? I mean, you did mention that in your first answer. Is that just alleged at this point that there is far left wing ties?
It has been alleged by one corporate news outlet. I think it might have been ABC or NBC, and they had the scoops early this morning.
Okay.
One of those, it might have been Fusion Ken, actually, that this individual had what he called anti-fascist. So they report it that way, anti-fascist ties, so meaning Antifa. So, Benny, again, this will raise a lot of questions and could potentially answer more questions as to why Chris Wray's FBI and Joe Biden's DOJ, although this was a hot investigation early on after January 6th, a lot of resources devoted to investigating the pipe bomb, releasing that video of this hoodie suspect, interviewing neighbors, trying to track down the purchase of those shoes that you showed, the backpack. I mean, this was a pretty intense investigation for the first few months. Then all of a sudden, everyone dropped it. And it was a cold case when Cash and Dan went in, made this a priority, devoted a lot more resources, some new agents, some new eyes on this case, some more updated technologies and availabilities to try to pinpoint the suspect, which apparently they did.
Any lead on what this lingering evidence was inside of the FBI that led to the apprehension? So according to our read on this, there was a pre-existing evidence from 2021 and 2022 investigations that they just had to, like, I guess, as the story goes, open the drawer at the FBI and just find, right? And that's been happening a lot recently.
Right.
Any idea what that was?
I don't yet. I've heard, some details about what that might have involved, but I think they really, Benny, had to go back and start from scratch in a lot of ways because this was such a cold case. And I can only assume, to your point, that evidence had been hidden, evidence had been tampered with, evidence maybe even destroyed. We know, ironically, the organization that informed the FBI that the cell phone data from January 5th had been corrupted. Remember that there was no cell phone data in that area available for January 5th. The entity that told the FBI was FirstNet. So I guess we're still supposed to believe that this was just a coincidence between FirstNet saying that there's no cell phone data, which, if that's true, that's a huge problem because they provide broadband to first responders in emergencies, crises, etc.
Right. Like, you're not very good at your job. Yeah.
Exactly. But also that this woman who decided to do her laundry at noon and then went back and all of a sudden found the pipe bomb right by this dumpster, that she also worked for FirstNet. Now, this woman, Carlin Younger, and she's done a bunch of interviews, so it's not, verboten to say her name. She told the FBI on January 8th and on January 11th, 2021, that the device was not there at noon when she went to start her laundry, that it had to have been planted between noon and 12:40 when she allegedly discovered it because she did not see it on her first trip to this little communal laundry room that she accesses from her building. So again, I'm very curious to see who this individual is. And then we'll just have to do more digging and rely on more information from the FBI and law enforcement about potential ties to the discovery at the RNC and DNC, still having to believe, defying all logic, common sense, other evidence, that both of these devices sat there undetected for 17 hours and just eureka were discovered right when the joint session of Congress was set to begin at 1:00.
Not really hard to see them there, Julie.
That's why she said it was not there at noon. That's why she said that.
Pretty.
I mean,
pretty
it's not small.
I mean, it's like pretty obvious, and so was the other one. You know, you can see it with the naked eye. It's not like they were hidden,
right?
And it's not like these were the only people that were walking around. They're like shiny metallic devices. There they are, clear as day, literally sitting out in the open, like doing zero job to actually obscure any of these devices.
Well, here's why we'll touch a little bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about this again. The Blaze story about this individual being a Capitol Police officer, among other reasons, never made any sense, because if you're a Capitol Police officer, you understand that there's security cameras everywhere. And even if you are wearing a hoodie and a mask and covering everything up, you've got cell phone. I'm hearing also reports that this individual had more than one cell phone. You know that you're being recorded. And this person was in no hurry, right? Appeared to not be aware that there were cameras everywhere, that this individual was walking around.
Right.
Not for 5 minutes, for 45 minutes.
Yes.
In some instances, retracing his steps. So that was another odd angle as to the reports by the Blaze that allegedly identified this individual as a female Capitol Police officer. So again, and Benny, if this individual is tied to Antifa, it explains why this has been buried for so long. Because think of what was happening in early 2021. The whole insurrection narrative was being developed, that Donald Trump incited people to storm the Capitol. He was being impeached over it. This was the only thing that the media was covering. And part of this narrative was that a MAGA person, set these devices outside the RNC and DNC the night before to either blow up the buildings or to launch what they described as this terror attack on January 6th. Had anyone else been arrested, March, April 2021, especially someone with, say, a social media footprint about Antifa or ties to Antifa, the entire January 6th narrative would have disintegrated right then and there, as our friend Darren Beatty, and I miss him today. I wish he could talk today. I wish he could be somewhere. But as he has always said, once the pipe bomb matter unravels, all of January 6th unravels. And if this person is a leftist or a Democrat or even tied to any of those organizations or that party, this explains why they did nothing with this for 3.5 years after they opened the investigation.
Just 2 quick points on this, Julie, very, very quickly here. One, we know that there are BLM and Antifa activists that were charged on January 6th with criminal activities. Mm-hmm. One of them got 7 years in prison. One of them got 4 years in prison. One of them got 3 years in prison. There were multiple BLM-associated Antifa leftists that wore MAGA apparel, LARPed as MAGA, to infiltrate the crowd and to commit crimes, to smear the MAGA movement. That is a matter of demonstrable fact. Here's one of the felony charges. Maybe you went to some of these trials. So the left using this as an opportunity to try and cripple MAGA and to throw egg on the face, that's already something that's happened. And so if this was in line with that. 2, something that you've talked about quite extensively on this program is Thomas Crooks. We're now finding out that Thomas Crooks was like a dyed, in the wool, like left-winger, Trump hater, transgender, furry, curious, like deeply disturbed leftist. And they kept that from us, Julie. That would have made, and I guess it's hard to relitigate history, but if we had found that out right after Trump was shot, that a leftist was trying to kill Trump, not just some sad young man who lived with his parents, but a leftist, like an actual somebody who hated Trump, it would have framed the election totally differently. It would have changed everything in the 2024 election. I think Trump could have won 40 states. And And they kept that from it. They had that information. They kept it from us. And in fact, the FBI went and lied and said, actually, he's a right winger. And so they gave only a half truth about Thomas Crooks. So I guess I'm starting to see that pattern play here potentially, like that same pattern where they're covering up something for political expediency that they know would destroy the narrative.
Right. Well, this would have been the biggest narrative destroying event, torpedo the entire J6 narrative, had this individual, if reports are accurate, tied to Antifa. Think of what we would have been spared over the past 4 years.
Of course.
Instead of allowing this FBI, the Chris Wray FBI, Biden DOJ, to use the events of January 6th to launch this war of terror against American citizens, rounding up almost 1,600 of them before the president thankfully won the election. So, but look, Benny, aside from, and you just showed the indictment of John Sullivan, and he was not trying to hide himself. He was on video. He was recording a lot of things that were going on. He was inciting some of the things. I believe he was right. They're not far away when Ashley Babbitt was killed by Michael Byrd. But also, since then, we know, and we have seen, posted this, DC undercover police officers who are arriving at the Capitol on the early afternoon of January 6th. And you can see people who are on Capitol grounds telling DC Metro, there's Antifa over there. We can see, there's video on Capitol grounds of these little guys in black bloc, with their masks and all black and backpack, running around, scurrying around Capitol Hill. And you hear one police officer respond and say, that's why we're here, to get Antifa. So, but we've seen none of those intelligence products. Chris Wray right away said that there was no evidence Antifa was there. He said that early on before there was any way he could even determine that. So again, this is just part of what we've already pieced together with video, with documents about the discovery of the devices, but also now who actually allegedly planted them the night before.
I guess we'll start to actually see it all unravel. And this is going to be a massive day for Cash and Dan, and a huge proving ground. And if they are able to bring this and then get it to stick and able to uncover the broader network of what happened here, man, this will be a huge win. In conclusion here, Julie, what would you like to see happen next? I mean, what threads need to be tied up with Nancy Pelosi on that day? Where would you like to see Loudermilk go next? I know that he's directly involved. I mean, he spoke to Stephen. He said he called Stephen's son right away when this happened. So Loudermilk's clearly pushing for all of this. What would be your advice to the new J6 committee? Amazing that they spent $20 million on the last J6 committee and didn't come up with any of this information. Isn't that remarkable, Julie?
Right. At least 20 million. I think it is, recall that when that 840-page report was released by the J6 committee, they mentioned the pipe bombs 5 times. I mean, there should have been an entire chapter devoted to the pipe bomb story, the pipe bomb mystery. The J6 committee didn't even interview Stephen D'Antuono, who is the DC head of the Washington, D.C. FBI field office, who led the investigation into the pipe bombs. They didn't even interview him. Kamala Harris never talks about her brush with death, her near brush with death that day. And in her book that was recently released, she mentions a pipe bomb incident 1 time in 2 sentences. That's it. So none of that adds up either. So
it was a leftist. Sorry to interrupt you, because it was a leftist.
It was a leftist apparently the night before, but I still have questions, and I will still this is what I will keep pushing. And I will keep pushing Chairman Loudermilk on this as well, and the FBI.
Please. Is
there a connection between this individual, the individuals who discovered it, the Capitol Police officer, and then the woman tied to FirstNet, Carlin Younger? Maybe there are no ties, but maybe these devices were planted. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they're just catching the person who was on video. There's no part of that lengthy video that shows this hoodie individual actually planting anything by the RNC. Correct. He walks by a court near that area, but there's no video of this person setting it down. So there are still, I caution everyone, including myself, also to be open-minded, but this is not a crime that has been solved even with this person in custody right now. There are still going to have to be a lot of threads pulled, as you said, tying them together, and then also exposing why the Chris Wray FBI memory hold this whole thing, buried it from the American people, once again to protect Democrats and tried to sabotage Donald Trump and his movement.
I know that we have to go here, but I just can't. There's one thing I just can't, because the last time Darren Beatty was on our program, he talked us through for 30 straight minutes how the DNC security camera footage had been intentionally doctored and downgraded. And he gave us like demonstrable evidence that somebody was manipulating the actual footage of the pipe bomber that they were showing to the public. Like who the F was doing that? What were they like? What, like, and who has the power to do this exactly? And why? And can we please get an explanation for this?
Right.
Because the year is 2021. This is not what security footage looks like. This is not what these cameras. Somebody is intentionally degrading the footage.
Right.
Is this an actor? Is this an actor? Is this actually even happening? Is it all like kabuki theater?
Well, I'm hoping we get some answers on that too, because Darren Beatty did, and he was the one who discovered that years ago, that this security camera outside the DNC, that footage had been intentionally manipulated, slowed down. So, and even the footage in other locations, Benny, very sketchy, which also raised questions as to how they could do this gate analysis at the Blaze using any of that FBI security footage, because it is so choppy. It's choppy everywhere. So hopefully we'll get some answers about that too. But Benny, I love you. I have to run. You are the greatest.
We love you, Julie.
I will be back on soon, I'm sure.
Bye. Bye, Julie Kelly. You're the best. Follow Julie.
You are.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want a society based on truth, based on liberty, based on religious liberty, and most importantly, based on the foundational principles that built this nation, First Liberty is the organization for you. First Liberty has a wonderful religious liberty states index that helps track exactly how free, read, how oppressed, suppressed, how Sharia lawed each state is. Ooh, boy, you got to check out where Minnesota is on this list. My friends at the First Liberty Institute has compiled this list, and they are also fighting for religious freedom around the country. It's obviously the only religion that is truly persecuted in America is Christianity. We know that as a matter of fact. It has been an ongoing persecution for the last 100 years of Christians and Christian principles here, and that is why we are proud to partner with the First Liberty Institute. They've been fighting for religious freedom for the last 30 years, and when faith comes under attack, they are there. They have a win rate of 90% in their cases because our founders constructed this nation correctly in order to ensure that liberty and that religious liberty in particular can remain free, including a 9-0 record at the Supreme Court. First Liberties Institute will be there for you. How do they rank your state? Get a free copy today at firstliberty.com/Benny. That's firstliberty.org, correction there, firstliberty.org, O-R-G/Benny. Reading a little too fast this morning. firstliberty.org/Benny, paid for by the First Liberty Institute. So Julie Kelly was just there talking about how there's going to be a press conference at 1 ALX. Can you confirm that? We're going to be live for it. It's going to be big, ladies and gentlemen. I am thrilled to bring you new lies from Kamala Harris. Let's just jump really quickly here as ALX is confirming this, because we want to be live for that. There's going to be a press conference at 1 o'clock. These things do tend to potentially be delayed a little bit, but boy, we want to make sure that we are live for that. Josh Shapiro, he's the Democrat governor of Pennsylvania. He's ripping Kamala Harris for blatant lies about him in her memoir. So we love, obviously, the Democrat Civil War. She's trying to sell books and cover her ass. Oh boy! All right, let's go ahead and read here. Democrat Civil War. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro ripped into former Vice President Kamala Harris, accused of spreading blatant lies about him in her memoir that nobody read and nobody wanted to read. Shapiro, once on Harris's short list to be vice president, flew into a fury when he learned that the former VP in her campaign tell-all, 107 days, described him as arrogant, domineering, and captivated by VP perks during the vetting process. So Kamala Harris went scorched earth against Josh Shapiro. Yikes. Dude, how short is Josh Shapiro? Kamala Harris is like a midget. How short is Josh Shapiro? Look at that. They're the same height. Dude's 5 foot tall. How short is that dude? How tall is that dude? She wrote that in her book, Shapiro asked. The Atlantic's Tim Alberta, who highlighted the scathing passage in a sit-down public interview. That's a complete and utter bullshit, he says. I can tell you that her accounts are just blatant lies. It's amazing. He says 5'9". Yeah, press X to doubt. All right, whatever, man. But still, dude, bro. In her book recounting the 107 days of her doomed campaign, Harris said Shapiro was fixated on the vice presidential residence, measuring the drapes, counting bedrooms, and questioning if the Smithsonian would lend Pennsylvania art for display. Goodness. Harris wrote that the governor wanted to be in the room for every decision if she became president, adding that he often hijacked conversations and frequently needed to be told that he wouldn't have equal power. What a bunch of goblins. When asked if he felt betrayed by the vice president, Shapiro lashed out, accusing her of deflecting blame for her crushing loss to President Trump. I mean, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass, he snapped. I shouldn't say cover her ass. I think that's not appropriate. Classic Democrat man there. Oh, I'm sorry. Did the true thing I just said offend you? Anyway, this is very interesting. Let's read the end of the quote here. We were already asking a lot of America to accept a black woman married to a Jewish man, Harris wrote in her book. Part of me wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. But knowing what was at stake, too big of a risk. So they went for drag queen Tim Walz. Got it. Okay. Like Sharia law drag queen Tim Walz. That's what they decided. They decided that was an easier sell. $1 billion fraud, Somali pirate, and other kind of pirate Tim Walz. That's what they went for. Good for you, guys. Well done. Kamala Harris, the smartest campaign. Ladies and gentlemen, looks like we got. What do we got here? Okay, so we got the suspect getting an FBI raid. This is the pipe bomber suspect. FBI raid right now, live outside of their home. Excellent. Look at this. Dude lived in a nice house. Look at that. That is that's like a mansion. Dude lived in a nice home. Woodbridge, Virginia. This is a beautiful little cul-de-sac here. And look at this massive FBI raid going on. Goodness. So it looks like they're ripping apart his car and his house. Got a bunch of agents there. Good for them. As we let this play out, and as I check in with my producers, ALX, okay, as of now, trying to look for additional info. ALX is saying there's scant info on the live FBI. I mean, what I'm trying to ask here, ALX, is if it looks imminent, we'll keep going. But if it's going to be 1 o'clock, then we might do a little reset here and hop on back on the live. As my producers sort of hammer this out and leave this shot up, please. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking of homes, not sure how much of this guy's home has been paid off, but my friends at American Financing, we're gonna stop. We're gonna stop. Okay, let's do a clean read here. Out of control credit card debt is modern day slavery. We talk about it a lot. as the feds are dropping interest rates and manipulating them, now is the time to get out of high interest credit card debt. I believe usury rates should be illegal. I believe they're immoral, but a lot of these rates are in the 20s and 30s. That is a lifetime of debt. Get out now using your home equity. American Financing can make sure that you get locked in and that you get bundled into a rate more around like the Fed's funds rate, frankly, around 5%. That's what it should be. Not against people making money, but I am against usury for certain. Again, it's immoral. It's unchristian. It's a game changer, ladies and gentlemen. Get out of slavery today. Call American Financing at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net/Benny. Okay. Let's freaking go. What is this? Judge Boasberg reverses course on January 6 defendants pardoned by Trump. I haven't read this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's read it right now. ALX and I were, again, we had a, wow, look at that. Look at that shot. Klein, pop on over there. Got like feds like pulling evidence out of the house. The Fed just like pulled like a giant like it looked like a big laptop, big bag of evidence out of the house and is now stuffing in the car in the FBI jacket. Look at that. Goodness. Boasberg reverses course on J6 defendants. U.S. Judge James Boasberg, our favorite, on Wednesday ordered 2 January 6 defendants pardoned by President Trump to be refunded in full for restitution payments made and fines incurred as part of the earlier criminal cases. Interesting. It's a reversal from just months earlier when the same judge rejected the bid for the repayment. Wow. Am I reading this correctly? I don't pretend to be some type of really smart judicial mind, but it says that he's saying that the J6ers should be made whole and should get a full refund for defending themselves against what looks like what is obviously a malicious prosecution by the Biden DOJ. That's awesome. Don't make me like Judge Boasberg. Don't do it. Don't make me like Judge Boasberg. I'm not going to do it. We're not going to do it. No. Boasberg used a memo on Wednesday to outline a fairly complex case history for two J6ers who had been tied to convicted on a misdemeanor charges, of course, in connection with January 6th, and ordered to pay hundreds of dollars in assessment fees and restitution. Boasberg's order effectively clears the way for the government to refund both of them in full, and then also probably thousands of other J6ers. Wow. The new decision, he said, is the result of an appeals court decision, as well as timing of Trump's pardon, which came at the same time their case was pending before the D.C. Circuit. Having viewed the question afresh, the court now agrees with the defendants. Both defendants have been in the process of appealing their convictions when Trump took office, sweeping pardon for the 1,500 January 6 defendants. In July, Boasberg rejected their request to be refunded for the restitution payments, but now he's flipped. By itself, the defendant's pardon, therefore, cannot unlock the retroactive return of their payments, and they asked for here, he noted, of course, ruling. Rather, he said the reversal hinged on the fact that both of their cases had been pending before the U.S. Court of Appeals, D.C. Circuit, when Trump granted the pardon, thereby mooting their appeals, causing their conviction to be vacated. Okay, well, you know what? I'll take good movement on all this. I'll take it. Here's the front of the house, by the way. It looks like a zoom in. I mean, so the J6 pipe bomber was living in a nearly $1 million house in a $700,000 home. Don't put addresses up, please. Okay, great. Okay, great. So living in a nearly $1 million house, a $700,000 home. Huh? Like, what is this? Okay. Very strange. Very, very strange. Ladies and gentlemen, we have many, many more questions about this than answers. But I guess we're going to get some answers at approximately 1 o'clock. Approximately 1 o'clock. So I guess we will hit back in that hour. That's what we're going to do. Look at this. Look at the teams. You got like full on. You got full on, hazmat teams. I mean, I don't know if it's exactly bomb squad. It looks like a hazmat team going through. I mean, the reason that you'd wear that would be in order to not contaminate anything, when you're looking for DNA evidence. What heavy work that they're doing right now at this home, at this property. This guy got a family, you're living in a family home. You got a family? Crazy times. If they really nailed this, then good for them. I would vote for the person of the year to be either Cash or Dan Pudge, maybe the FBI. Saving the FBI, you'd get person of the year for me. Polymarket has an interesting person of the year market up. Let's go ahead and check the polls. Here we go. Who is our person of the year? This is, of course, the Polymarket poll that was 100% correct when it came to the 2024 elections, when it came to Tennessee 7. That's why we weren't sweating bullets there, quite frankly. It's just the bet on win, who's going to win. It's not exactly the margins. So it's not for headlines. It's just for the money. AI is the orange one. AI, artificial intelligence. Jensen from NVIDIA, that is practically holding up the entire global market right now. Pope Leo or Donald Trump at 8%. Donald Trump won last year. Correct, ALX? Trump won last year. Okay. ALX is saying that it's the parents' house. Interesting.
All the streams say it's his house, but ALX was saying parents.
Interesting. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think? AI will be person of the year? That's extremely creepy. I am totally against that. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Who do you think should be person of the year? Here is last year's person of the year, an epic photo shoot with President Trump. President Trump has the country back on track. A lot of really good things have happened. It's not been perfect, but I think there's massive room for improvement and correction here. I want to clear the slate, clear the chessboard, so to speak, of these forever wars. Ukraine, by the way, this is an undercovered story. Ukraine is in total and complete collapse right now. Zelensky's, 70 members of Zelensky's party have been raided on corruption. Zelensky's right-hand man and chief of staff resigned after massive raids on his house. It's not going to be Zelensky, person of the year. I think Zelensky was person of the year a couple of years ago. And now he's gotten the boot. Ukraine is collapsing. But here we go. It looks like the market is collapsing, though, for potentially having AI be the person of the year. I hope that's not the case. That'd be creepy. That'd be weird. I'm against it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am in favor of a verse of the day, especially on days like today. I've asked for verses from the story of Christendom in order to hopefully backstop some dark news that we've had, obviously on the Somali fraud and then now on the pipe bomber. Although it's good that we're finding the pipe bomber. This is crazy. Can you go back to the helicopter shot? Look at this. So this is allegedly the parents' house of the bomber. I want to get that right. So allegedly this is the home of the parents' house, who is 30 years old. This was a 30-year-old lib living in his father's basement. So sad, dude. Raise your kids. Raise your kids. Be smart, man. Be smart. Don't let other people raise your children. You got to raise your own kids. Speaking of the child of God, here from Luke 1:35. The angel answered her, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, and therefore a child will be born and will be called Holy, the Son of God." Jesus Christ, born of a virgin, the Holy Mother Mary. Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior, in this incredible season. Recommit your life to God. Recommit your life to the Prince of Peace. There is a lot of crazy things that are happening right now. God is in control of all of them. Either God's in control or he's not. Either God is God or he's not. And you have to make that choice. And that is the choice that will define your entire life. Either the government's God or God is God. Either God has full and total power over our lives and over what is happening and has destined and predestined us for greatness and for purpose, for meaning, or he has no control. And everything's just spinning wildly and randomly and purposelessly. No. It's a terrible way to look at life. You can see the results in people's lives, frankly. And so choose God and choose our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be live back again. We'll take a little break here and we'll be live again. Maybe ALX will have one of those things where we just funnel through. But we'll be live again soon and give us a chance to catch our breath here and come back for a live FBI announcement on the pipe bomber. And we'll find out everything that there is to know on this wild news story. It's your boy Benny. Merry Christmas. March with us. We're going to win. See ya.
Quick! Everyone, flee for your lives! Into the street! Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Show where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.